I'm going to be actually reading, so you have to get, my eyes may not always be focused on the screen. But here we are on Zoom, and we're all getting to be pros, as far as I can tell. And some of us may be even a little tired of it. But back in the olden days of 6 weeks ago, that really wasn't the case for a lot of us. I'm Terry Thorson. I belong to the League of Women Voters of Jefferson County. Our league president is Effie Callis, who's here today, and Carlene Shaw is our treasurer, and they'll be joining in when we have a discussion and able to answer any questions. I wasn't quite sure on the exact topic, so what I came up with was a two-part topic. Was I don't want to break this. How did you hold your Zoom candidates forums talk into two topics? One is, yes, we'll go over the specifics of how the League of Women Voters of Jefferson County set up online candidate forums and how we tested the concept ad nauseum and what we learned from the events. But secondly, I'd like to also discuss this more general notion of why I want to encourage everyone to take that same big running jump into this void and not to be afraid. It's important to move beyond what we know and are comfortable with and what we all can gain from something like that. Trying new things. So, going digital. The League of Women Voters of Jefferson County has a history of holding public forums prior to the primary election for the nonpartisan candidates. This year, that includes the offices of Justice of the Supreme Court of Appeals, Magistrate, Board of Education, and the Conservation District Supervisor. I run the League's website, our local one, and had wanted to start to post videos on the website of our programs and the forums. I can do this easily if the recording is first uploaded to YouTube, but that doesn't mean we need a recording. So last year we determined we got better quality recordings in large rooms using a camcorder instead of mobile phones. The camcorder eliminated this issue of phone mics and phone storage and phone battery life, a lot of which varied depending on who was doing the recording. Except even a camcorder wouldn't work if no one wanted to or was allowed to be in a room together. So like a lot of people, I wish I'd kept a daily diary of events, but I do have a memory of getting a haircut in March on a Thursday and discussing with the stylist how some of her more elderly clients were going to skip their haircuts for now. And then she told me that the schools were closing the next day early on a Friday, so the teachers could meet with the school board and maybe come up with some more extensive cleaning regimen. Just chatting, I told her I'd talk to my husband, who takes the train into DC twice a week, that maybe he could request that he works at home on those days. And then by the following Monday, the schools were closed, the workplaces were closed, and people weren't leaving their homes. Our primary election in West Virginia was at that time still scheduled for May 12th. Early voting started well before that, so we, as the league, had to act fast if we were going to figure out how to hold our forums under those circumstances. Luckily, the league's board meeting was scheduled for the next day on a Tuesday. A member of the league set up a phone conference at the time, not Zoom, because even had we wanted to meet, the meeting room we used at the university library was closed. Our league secretary is known for going above and beyond with his minute taking. So I was able to go back and look at what was discussed at that meeting. The president's report covered a lot of postponed events. We weren't necessarily yet abandoning the idea altogether of holding these events. The new business, the report included postponing more events. Emotion was carried that we hold an audience-free forum and that it be streamed Facebook style by a member with her cell phone. I had made the choice not to leave the house, being one of the target populations for the virus. No talk of Zoom at the time. 2 weeks later, I was holding my first Zoom forums test meeting with a candidate in preparation for our first Zoom candidate forum, a complete paradigm shift. In those 2 weeks, the nationwide response to the virus threat had changed even more quickly. Each day was a new announcement, and my personal choice to stay at home became the requirement. Zoom was in the news, and our would-be forum moderator, Lynn Widmeyer, and I decided that more than ever, it was important that the league host the forums. How else would voters learn about the candidates since nobody could leave their houses, and that we would do it on Zoom. So once the slide into Zoom was complete, there were practical considerations. I had to learn Zoom. And you know what I did? I went on the Zoom website and read through the support section. In the IT world, this approach used to be called RTFM, read the manual. The Zoom support site's very good. Zoom has short instructional videos. I decided to buy the $15 a month account. I reasoned I could use it for my family and my book club, you know, as well as the forums. Our forum monitor, Lynn, handled a number of forum details, emailing the candidates, soliciting the possible questions for the forum, as she would have done anyway. I wanted to be sure that each candidate was well represented on and comfortable with Zoom, especially in light of our county's unequal broadband access. I create WordPress websites. I had recently set up an appointment, excuse me, an appointment scheduler for a yarn store website to allow the owner to host individual online Zoom shopping meetings as her store was closed. So I set up a similar appointment scheduler for the candidates to choose a time to test Zoom with me. I made myself available most of the week for several weeks for half-hour appointments. So once a candidate chose a time, I created a Zoom meeting, we tested their connection, and I answered any questions they had about Zoom and the upcoming forum. I think this helped the candidates feel better about the process, and I learned a lot from them. We made this mandatory, the testing. If you weren't willing to test, you didn't get to be in the forum. The league had to work out new forum rules as well. For example, at first we told candidates we wouldn't allow political signs in their background view, which we later changed to requesting that they post a campaign sign behind them. I'll explain why shortly. I also advised the candidates to request that others in their household please refrain from using their internet during the forum. Close your browser, close other applications on your desktop to conserve bandwidth, little hints like that. But most important, I mean, for us, we, the league, had to actually test the Zoom meeting forum and test it again, as my members can attest to. So testing and practicing was key to our success. And I'm really grateful to the board members who played along and made themselves available as testees. We didn't just pull up Zoom and stare at each other. We had trial runs of the forum. I recorded each one to review later. At first, we stopped to work out the hitches we'd run into, but we also held a dress rehearsal where we ran through a pretend forum start to finish, not stopping to correct problems, but fixing them on the fly as we would in a real forum. To take the edge off any anxiety people had initially, we had fun with our test forums. We held a forum for candidates for the office of dog catcher, canine control officer. Members pretended to be candidates for office. One candidate held up a bag of dog treats at the end of her introduction for voters to take some on their way out. Another member candidate saw no reason to coddle these creatures, just shoot them, who likes dogs anyway. And a third candidate angrily railed against who knows what, Effie, but insisted they were the most qualified for the position. I frankly had no idea these people, who I mostly knew through way too long board meetings, were so funny. However, they did make me delete that recording. So recording. While testing and practicing was important, as I said, I recorded each test because the recording was what the audience would see. I learned a lot from that too. And yes, you just click a record button. I've done something here to my own view. Here we go. Okay. So yes, you just click a record button, but then you have to click another choice that when you're hosting, it's not just click and start. I had to learn that. This takes another second. So when Lynn was announcing that the recording was starting for our forum, which we did, we announced the beginning and the end of recording for the candidates. She learned to just wait a beat. So I had enough time to start the recording. It's a little thing, but that's why you practice. I learned the recorded view doesn't fully match the live view. For example, the meeting speaker view shows the speaker's name in the lower left corner. We were discussing that earlier. That name disappears in a local recording, a recording that you make to your own PC. So that is why we revised our instructions to candidates to place a campaign sign in their background so people would know who they were. Most people don't have the internet speed and computer processing power to effectively display a virtual background. We requested that the candidates not use a virtual background, else their ears disappear, their hands become disembodied from their arms. I tried to use a virtual background today. I have high-speed cable internet and a fancy computer. I have a old sheet on a curtain rod connected to my filing cabinet and a camera tripod on top of a desk. I thought this would work. Let me show you what it looks like. It does not work. Let me change that over here to this one here. So it's a nice little logo, which I mean, as you can see my hands, this isn't really working. We tried different, it looks nice, the background looks nice, but I don't. I'm all green in places and things. So that, we're not very fond of the virtual backgrounds. I discovered you have to figure out how to tell Zoom where to save your recording if you're recording to your own computer. It creates a default file, and it may not be where you want to find it. It may not be where you want it. I had to hunt down the first recording. Zoom provides the option of cloud recording and or local recording, but I was concerned we'd exceed the cloud recording space allotted to the account. So I have room on my hard drives, and I chose to record locally. But by the way, for me, that was the most anxiety-provoking feature of our venture, because what if something went wrong with the recording? But what if something went wrong? There were a lot of places things could go wrong. As Lynn said at the outset, at least it's not live. At least we tried. So that was comforting in a way. Here's how we ran the forum. I customized several features to change my profile to the League of Women Voters of Jefferson County. I'm not going to go into all those, but instead of being my face, it would be the logo. On the meeting room, there was a logo, things like that. Carlene caught one where I was telling our magistrates that we were having the Board of Education forum shortly, and that's one reason we practiced. I used a Zoom meeting room. Candidates joining the forum started in the meeting room, and I let them in one by one as a security measure. That's pretty common now. While the start of the forum was set for 7 o'clock at night, we asked the candidates to sign in earlier, 6:30 to 6:45, so we could check their audio and visual and confirm their name pronunciations. For the forum, we muted everybody but the speaker. We weren't concerned that someone would speak out of turn, but as you know, somebody coughing or a dog barking, the speaker view changes. Lynn announced the recording would begin. I pressed record. Candidates had a minute to introduce themselves, a minute to answer each question, and 2 minutes to provide a summary. We shifted who answered first with each new question. Lynn made sure to provide the name of each candidate and repeat the question when it was their turn to speak, such as, Ms. Smith, are you familiar with the ethics requirement? Mr. Jones, are you familiar with the ethics requirement? Which gave me time to unmute them and mute the previous speaker. I learned after the first forum that I wanted to alter the candidate names because it was hard to find them in that attendee list. You don't get a choice in the order those appear. So Lynn announced the end of the recording. I stopped it and the next day posted it to our website. We've had 800 views. That's not all discrete individuals, but it's pretty good. So, second part of this talk, taking that running leap. Say you get a phone call from an unknown number. Do you answer it? Say you do. If the caller says, "Hello, this is Microsoft calling. We're monitoring your computer. We need your password to fix the virus you have." Do you say, "Sure, here it is"? I actually had a friend who did that, and he does not use his laptop. He can't use that laptop anymore. Believe me, if I say this is not the same kind of risk as one encounters downloading a program like Zoom or similar reputable apps. Headlines scream, "Danger, danger, hackers busted into an online concert and showed pornographic images." Well, if you read the story, the people who set up the concert ignored Zoom's basic security settings. They did the equivalent of answering that phone call and giving away the password. Read the manual. Assessing risk is difficult, and most of us are terrible at it. So, supposing you have seen these stories and you're concerned, and you also have terrible broadband, and you haven't had the access over the years to find out what's available online. Is the solution to sort of stay isolated, or is it worth trying this new thing out? What can you gain from learning more about Zoom? Now, I'm probably speaking to people who are converted at this point, but we're meeting here. This is great. It may not seem that earth-shattering, but I wonder what people's reaction would have been to a suggestion that we hold this event as a Zoom meeting pre-pandemic. Probably not so happy about it. Zoom is more than meetings. A couple examples. I have a niece who works for the Frick Museum in New York City. And the Frick is closed. It's hosting weekly cocktails with a curator. It's a happy hour where a Frick curator remotely offers insights on a work of art with a complimentary cocktail that the Frick designed. Last night, the event centered on Barbet's Angel, and to quote, "an incredibly rare bronze from 15th century France whose origins are shrouded in mystery." I still want to see that one. The suggested cocktail was named Angel Face and included Calvados, presumably because the artist is French. But almost more intriguing locally, I have a friend, Susan. She can't visit her grandchildren right now. So she started reading to a grandchild on Zoom, but she's not just sitting in front of her screen with a book in her lap. She shares her screen. She and her grandson go to the library together on the library system Overdrive book lending library. It's online. They can look at all the books. The book picture, the fronts of the books are showing. He picks the book. Susan borrows it. It's an ebook, so it shows up on the screen. She continues to share her screen, and she moves the little laptop hand cursor underneath each word as she reads the book to this child. So I suggest, you start with something like Zoom. You get comfortable. You're more, you try a different, similar, you get similar online opportunity. That's the kind of thing I would really like to hear partly in our discussion, how people have used it or how they are thinking about using it. I'd like to learn more about the Zoom webinar feature. I don't know much about that, and if that's feasible or workable or not. But maybe there's other interesting things that we're trying to do with this opportunity of the online world that is out there right now, since we're all stuck in our homes. So I'm be interested in hearing what people have to say. And if you have any questions about our forum, let's ask them. And Effie and Carlene are here to help answer.
All right. Any questions, people?
Question.
Okay, Brittany.
Terry, when you talked about recording with your candidates, did you have live viewers when you recorded, or did you do everything sort of closed circuit and then just post it afterwards?
The latter. We did not do live. You can do live. You can stream to Facebook on Zoom. And I think you can do both at the same time, but we had not tested this before. And I also wanted to bring people to the website.
For me, that makes sense, especially I know you're talking security features. I think that's a lot easier to control with a password than if you have, you know, a live thing with an open password with people just logging on.
The password isn't that great because anybody can share a password. It's the meeting room that is important, that you know ahead of time if you're having people be actively in the Zoom meeting, to know ahead of time who you have invited. Then you set it up on when you set up the meeting, you say start with a meeting room. And then you get to admit each person in. So if it's not a familiar person, you don't admit them. But if you send out an invitation, that password is written into that link. And so if somebody was, I mean, this kind of group isn't going to pose that problem, but more widely, people can just share that. Yeah.
This is Julie. I had a.
Oh, Betty had her hand raised. She's muted.
Oh, okay. Let me unmute her then. So.
Yeah, there we go, Betty.
Okay.
Okay. Campbell County is very interested in doing this, and we're going to be working with the library IT person.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's really good. But I think it would be very helpful if your presentation is in written form that could be sent out to the rest of us. And if you would be willing to talk with our library person or somebody else who knows your lingo too, that we don't know.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, that if anybody wants to, if you go to our website,
which is
apparently there's two ways to get in touch. One is the website, which is LWV-JCWV, League of Women Voters Jefferson County, West Virginia.org. LWV-JCWV.org, which we could put in the chat. And there's there are links there, and there's a link to the to the website host, which is me. There's links to our president and so on, who could also get people in touch with me. The other thing is the emails that have been going out have me on there, Terry Thorson. It's admin-tt@bluestarsdesign.com. That's in the emails. So if you look for that address up there, that person, although I do request, I'm not a big email fan, and please don't add me to lists, but personal emails are fine.
In the minutes, I've summarized most of the points she made, so that's a written for you once I send out the minutes.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, put my email address in there, that admin-tt.
Well, I put the website.
Oh, okay, that's another way, yeah.
So Terry, how compared to a physical forum, how do you feel like there was more time involved or less time involved?
Well, for me, there was a lot more time involved because I had to, when this, maybe now again, it's funny how things change in such a short period, but when we first started this, everybody was struggling to learn to even get online with Zoom, and many of those people who are candidates had children in schools who were trying to get online with Zoom, and they were trying to help their children, and then they were trying to work from home. So it was hard for them to find time to even initially to even try out Zoom with me. So I set up this appointment times where they could pick any time, which meant I had to be ready to be there anytime when they were. And I did adjust it so that I had to have 4 hours notice, which let me know if somebody hadn't signed up by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I was free for the day. But that was a lot of work, but it was enjoyable too. I got to speak with everybody that was running for office. But that was a lot of work. I don't know, I have not, maybe somebody who's, Carlene or Effie, have you done the regular forms, maybe setting up the places and all, and having people, that's got to be a lot of work too. Maybe it's all just different kinds of work. Do you have any thoughts on that, Effie or Carlene? Undoing in-person forms, how much effort?
So, of course, there's a lot of effort to put on an in-person forum. But let's be clear, this new age of conducting forums virtually would not have occurred for us had it not been for a dedicated league member or anybody who can find somebody to help out. It is not unlike back in the old days. How did the league communicate? We used to do phone trees. We used to call each other. We don't do that anymore because everybody learned how to use email. And this is just the next extension. We're not emailing anymore. We're on Slack, and we're not calling a venue, getting insurance to cover us for that venue, and then contacting a moderator and then trying to get candidates to be available for those times. And then there's a constant back and forth. This candidate can't, that candidate can, the moderator can't, the venue can't. That's all gone. So at least not all gone, but at least as far as that kind of workload, it's just a flop. And if you're lucky enough to have a Terry, and I guess right now she's presented herself to the rest of the state to help, seize the opportunity, because after that, the workload, it falls off of a cliff. This is easy. This is like using email instead of the old phone tree. Well, Carlene, I'd be happy to hear your thoughts on it.
One thing about what you said, which I just forgot. Let me try to remember.
Let me go ahead while you think. The first one, we did hours and hours and hours of testing. I mean, like every couple of days, we ran another test that she was recording, and then we were looking at and we were making comments. And the second forum, we need to do already work that out. So the second one went really quickly.
Yeah, the learning curve was done.
I remembered also what Effie was saying about finding a date. Everybody was in lockdown, so they had no reason not to do it. That may change,
It's true, but whenever you have a group of people in any business, finding a date, but finding a venue is the that third prong of that stool: moderator, candidates, and venue. You just eliminated your venue search and also the cost of the insurance. I mean, it's just now the cost of whether $15 to get the basic level Zoom. That's nothing.
Wow. Well, so.
Oh, Nancy, you're muted. Nancy's iPad is muted.
Let me get unmuted. Why is she muted? Okay, here we go. Nancy. Anyway, I think I can unmute her. I can ask her to unmute. I'm not able to unmute her for some reason. No, wait.
Nancy under.
Oh,
Does
no,
anybody
Nancy.
have an iPad can tell her how to unmute?
Oh, wait. I see it there. Hold on. There you go. Wait.
Nancy's iPad.
I can unmute. Wait, it keeps putting the more. It's covering it up with the, I can't actually. Here, wait. It's not. Here, wait a second. This is weird. All right.
This is Julie. I'm on my iPad, and when you tap the screen, the controls pop up, and the mute and unmute is in a bar at the top.
Mm-hmm. For some reason, I'm just getting this ask to unmute. I don't think I have the, for some reason, I don't have the permission to unmute now.
Yeah, I think if they choose to mute themselves, I think.
Yeah. So she has to unmute. Nancy, you have to unmute yourself.
She says it's not working.
Can you type something into chat? Can you?
Yeah, type in the chat.
Sometimes too, if things aren't working, it's like turning it off and turning it back on again. If you exit and come back in again, sometimes that can help too.
Yeah,
There you are.
Yeah.
Oh, there she is.
Okay. I think I couldn't get it to work because I thought I was muted by Jonathan. But anyhow, we're unmuted. My question is, I thought I understood that you got like 800 views. Is that correct? Am I correct?
Well, views, which is not necessarily 800 distinct people, but for instance, one house could have 2 people that looked at the event, or somebody could have revisited a couple times. So I would say it's probably not 800 different people, but still, it's a huge number.
Curious, because when we do candidate forums in one county, we never have anywhere near that number of people. So I'm wondering, do you feel you're reaching far more people than having the actually in-person forums?
Effie?
Yeah, so we've been doing forums since our founding in the 1990s, and I've been a member along with Carlene since at least the late 90s or mid to late 90s, mid 90s. And if we got 100 people in the auditorium of a local elementary school, we were skipping because most of the time you would get 30 to 50 people, and of course that changes based on either presidential election versus non-presidential election, or a really hot issue or candidates race locally. So as opposed to butts in seats, absolutely, having something online, you'll get more views. But there's a finer point, I think, to be made. Last year, last election, we had candidates debates, which we recorded. They were live. There was a live audience, studio audience, and all the candidates, we were all in one room together, but one league member was recording it, and she put it up on the website. And so we had even more people. We had 80 people attend that fall county commission race. So, we had already transitioned into reaching a broader audience by putting things online, because of course we realized, driving out in the evening to a candidates debate's not, you're just going to get your 30 to 50 people. Record that same debate, put it online, you're going to get, 80 to 100 people. But now doing it this way, because nobody else is having candidates debates in person, we were the only game in town until just recently. Last week, the local NAACP, I think, took a chapter out of our book. But because we were the first game in town, of course, that's why we have 800 views. I get it. We have to put a little asterisk there. It may not be 800 unique individuals. It may not be 800 one-time hits. It might be people coming back and reviewing, but it's all to the good.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the other thing is that, just to make it clear, we have a website, and we chose to put it on the website now and link to it from Facebook. But the website draws the video from YouTube. I have to post it on YouTube. that's how WordPress plugins work. And if you could set up a YouTube channel and link to that, or put it on a Facebook page, I guess. Whatever works for your recording. I find Facebook hard to find things after they've been posted, and knowing, but I mean, other people are more adept at Facebook. But we did have the advantage of having the website and then being able to say, you can go here and also the local paper must have some dictation software or something, because then they posted a lot of text from a lot of the people's responses. In the $15 a month plan, you do not get the option to record the content as text or to use closed captioning. So one of my concerns was accessibility. It was always being concerned with making sure that you are, having your communities that maybe are hard of hearing or something be accessible. I'm hoping that just by the virtue of it being on a website or in YouTube, that there are ways people have figured that out, because I can't in the $15 a month plan. So
I know here locally at Mon County, again, the Monongalia County Bar Association had a forum for the judicial candidates in Morgantown. I'm not sure where they posted it though yet, but I thought that was kind of interesting. Everybody kind of spreading out, to do this now. Thank you for answering my question.
yeah, I guess the question for us going forward in the fall is, do we continue to just keep it closed and recorded, or do we try to do something more fancy? And if that's, I mean, it's not, I think we've got a winner right now, but we're just going to have to discuss that. But that's one thing I was interested if people had any other experience that was different online with something like this.
Well, I can tell you, these are personal incidents, however, but my children live out of state, and I have grandchildren, and so we Zoom like every week, sometimes every 2 weeks. But I've started this thing where I take something that's picture, make it into a puzzle, and send pieces to everybody, and then when we Zoom, we see if there's a winner, and I may give a hint. But now everyone is wondering what the prizes are, what I'm heard of. But and the other thing, sometimes we do this thing, like I play Van or White. We have this Wheel of Fortune where we take turns putting a letter into a phrase or an object. And that becomes fun too, because it gets boring for the children to hear adults discussing virus, so.
There's the whiteboard and the annotation that's in Slack. I don't think we've got that with this today, but there's if you host it yourselves and you don't restrict that, you can click on it and everybody gets a whiteboard and markers and they can draw.
I don't know. My son has the account, so, and I just come in. So I'll have to. I didn't know that. I'll have to ask. But my one grandson, who's very clever with Zoom, will keep changing his background to these strange. Like he has one where he's some monster. He has his head in the monster's mouth. He does. But anyhow, it's really been fun.
That's one thing I noticed when I was playing around with the league, and the league logo has that red swoosh, and we were saying, we don't want that swoosh like coming out of your nose or something,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of issues with these backgrounds.
Terry, you were talking about the whiteboard. In that webinar we did for the league convention, they actually had us learning how to use the whiteboard.
Oh, neat. Neat.
Yeah, and I think in the webinar that you and I attended, Carlene, as a training, we learned that whiteboard business.
Maybe that was instead of the league.
Well, I encourage everybody here today to go onto our Jefferson County website. It's very easy to find our videos, and just watch one of our videos of our candidate debates, and I think you will see the good, bad, and the ugly, but at least it's educational for you to, first step.
Yeah,
I told the second group, the Board of Education, if you look at our first one, you'll be relaxed because you'll see how homegrown it is.
Yeah, they're
Well,
excellent.
thank you for inviting us, Jonathan. It's been a pleasure.
We really enjoyed having you very much.
Julie has a question.
Oh, yeah, I have two quick questions, but I just want to, say thank you all for doing this and encouraging the rest of us to take the plunge. One question I had is will we be able to have a copy of this recording so we can refer back to it if we want to? And then specific to your forums that you held, was there an opportunity for members of the public to submit questions in advance, and then you kind of weeded those out, or how did you
Do you know, we did
determine
not,
the question?
we did not, but I noticed the NAA, Lynn solicited questions from officials and so on, and as many people as she could. We may have asked on Facebook, I'm not sure, but I noticed that for the NAACP Zoom meetings that they had just last week, was it? When they sent out an announcement about it, they had created a website where you could submit a question, a page on, and I thought that was an excellent idea. And I'm glad you reminded me of that, because I think that would be something to do for the future.
Well, I think, to pre-submit is one way to address the problem, but I think that if and when we do this in the fall, I think particularly Carlene and I, Workforce West Virginia has been having workshops just to teach everyday West Virginians how to up their game with Zoom. And one of the things that we learned is that, I think that workshop is having a producer, having a person who's running the show. So in other words, your moderator is one person, and that person really needs to be focused on asking the questions to the candidates and managing the candidates. You need a producer, someone who's like a Terry, who's not on the screen, but who's controlling everyone's sound and visuals, and also either that producer or a third person who's also off screen to accept chat questions from people who are viewing you. If you're not pre-recorded, if you're live, that's a way of doing it. Now, we chose not to because
they have to.
We didn't want to blow our minds, baby steps into the new world, but I think that probably will be our next step, is we'll do it live, and then people with their chat can ask the questions. But it can't be your moderator who is trying to read questions, filter out, which ones to ask and which not to ask. There needs to be a trust. It needs to be the producer.
Although you would have to be in the Zoom meeting, and there is a limit of 49 people in a Zoom meeting. This is where webinar changes the game. So that
unless you up to the next level.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Or you're not using Zoom. Maybe you're using something else like WebEx or Skype for Business. You get to choose your platform, and there's pros and cons.
Yes. Your first question was, Julie, you had a question before that. That was.
I was wondering if we would have access to a recording of your presentation. So I wanted to refer back to it.
When I stop this, I can send it to Jonathan if he, or probably can't send it. I have to post it somewhere where you download it, if you want that, for the members. But but however you want to do it, I have, that's fine. So
this has been really great. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So stopping recording.
All right. Thank you so much.